The King and the Wise Old Man. One bright and sunny day, a wise and noble king decided to tour his kingdom. It had been a long time since he had directly interacted with his people, and he wanted to see their conditions with his own eyes. Accompanied by a grand entourage of guards, ministers, and soldiers, the king moved from town to town. Along the way, the magnificence of his procession caught everyone's attention. Wherever the king passed, people rushed out of their homes. They hurried to the main road, waving, smiling, and even bowing to show their respect to the sovereign. Children ran excitedly along the streets, while merchants closed their shops for a moment, just to catch a glimpse of their beloved king. It was clear that the people held their ruler in high regard. The king returned their warm gestures with smiles, feeling honored and cherished by his subjects. However, on one particular day, when the king passed through a small, remote village, something unusual caught his eye. Though most of the villagers had eagerly come out to greet him, his attention was drawn to an old man sitting alone under a large tree at the edge of the village. This man appeared ragged, with long, unkempt white hair and a frail, thin body. Strangely, while everyone else seemed enthusiastic to welcome the king, this old man showed no interest at all. He remained seated, absorbed in some activity, perhaps weaving a basket or fixing a simple tool. The king felt puzzled. How could there be someone who wasn't captivated by his presence? Shouldn't everyone respect their ruler? Wasn't this a rare moment when a king visited such a distant village? With a heart full of questions, the king decided to approach the old man. His entourage fell silent, waiting to see what the king would do. Standing before the old man, the king gazed at him with curiosity, his aura commanding but not intimidating. The old man briefly glanced at the king, then returned to his task, seemingly unimpressed by the grand figure before him. Finally, the king broke the silence. "Old man, why have you not joined the others to greet me? Do you not know that I am your king?" The old man paused his work and looked up at the king with calm, unflinching eyes. With a hoarse but steady voice, he replied, "Of course I know who you are, your majesty. Long before you, other kings have passed through this village as well. I saw them come with the same grandeur and splendor that you bring today. The people rushed out to see them, waving and paying their respects, just as they do now for you." The king furrowed his brow, not quite understanding the old man's point. "Then why have you not come to show me the same respect?" The old man gave a faint smile and continued, "Not long after one of those kings passed through our village, he died. Word spread, and the people mourned. He was buried with all the honors and ceremonies due to a king, not far from here. Around the same time, a poor man from our village also passed away. He was buried too, but in a simple grave, without any grandeur." The old man's gaze drifted into the distance, as if recalling events from long ago. Then he said, "One day, a great flood swept through this area. The waters came so strong that they washed away the earth around the graves. The king's grave and the poor man's grave were both opened. When the flood waters receded, we found their bones mixed together, scattered across the ground, with no way to tell which belonged to the king and which to the pauper." The king fell silent, contemplating the old man's words, which were simple yet filled with profound wisdom. The old man resumed his story with calm resolve. "After seeing this, I realized that in death, there is no longer any difference between a king and a common man. In the end, we all return to the same earth, and our final resting place, our grave, will be no different. Wealth, power, and titles mean nothing in the face of death." The king was deeply moved by the old man's words. His heart, once filled with pride, now swelled with humility. How true the old man's words were. All the things the king had once held in high regard, his wealth, his power, his magnificence, would one day fade away. In the end, all humans without exception meet the same fate, forgotten by time and claimed by the earth. With a newfound sense of humility, the king smiled gently and nodded to the old man. "Your wisdom is greater than all the riches I have ever possessed. Thank you for the lesson you've shared." The old man smiled softly and returned to his task. The king, along with his grand entourage, continued their journey. But in his heart, the king carried a lesson that would forever change the way he viewed life and power. Moral of the story: life is fleeting, and wealth, titles, and worldly grandeur do not last. In the end, we all share the same fate, returning to the earth. What truly matters is not how much we possess, but how wisely and humbly we live our lives.